The morning began with a palpable buzz inside the Good Morning America studio. Viewers across the country tuned in to see Daniel Craig, the legendary actor synonymous with James Bond, make what was expected to be a lighthearted appearance to promote his latest project. Craig, known for his composed demeanor and subtle wit, rarely appeared on morning talk shows, and when he did, he carried himself with an understated charm that made audiences lean in rather than back away. This time, however, something in the air felt different. From the moment he walked onto the set, his body language suggested tension, and the familiar calm that often surrounded him seemed replaced by a tightly coiled frustration waiting to surface. Michael Strahan, the former NFL star turned morning show co-host, greeted him warmly, as he does with most guests. But as the interview began, the conversation took a direction Craig appeared unprepared for, or perhaps unwilling to entertain. Strahan, known for his friendly but probing interview style, began by asking about the physical toll of Craig's last few films. "You've mentioned before that Bond really took a lot out of you physically," Strahan said with a smile. "Now that you've hung up the tuxedo, are you finally at peace with saying goodbye to that chapter?" Craig gave a polite but curt answer at first, saying he was proud of his time as Bond and grateful for the opportunity, but he quickly steered the topic toward his new film, a mystery drama that he had spent months crafting with a small team of filmmakers. He wanted to focus on storytelling, on the art itself. Yet Strahan, sensing perhaps that the audience was hungry for more Bond talk, pushed again. "I mean, come on, Daniel," he said playfully, "you've got to miss it just a little bit. The car chases, the stunts, the suits. You were James Bond. That doesn't just go away." Craig's jaw tightened slightly, and his response carried a noticeable edge. "I don't miss the injuries," he said dryly. "Or the months of training. Or being asked about Bond every time I try to talk about something else." The audience gave a nervous chuckle, unsure if it was a joke. Strahan laughed too, trying to lighten the mood, but the shift was clear. What began as an easy interview suddenly became a delicate balancing act. Craig was clearly irritated by the continued references to a role he had already left behind, while Strahan was just doing what he thought viewers wanted, keeping the conversation lively and familiar. Moments later, Strahan mentioned a recent online article speculating about Craig's replacement in the franchise. "They're saying Aaron Taylor Johnson might be the next Bond," Strahan said with a grin. "Do you think he's got what it takes?" That was the moment something inside Craig seemed to snap. He took a slow breath and leaned forward. "You know," he said, his voice tightening, "I find it strange that people can't let go of something I've already moved past. I've spent years trying to prove I'm more than one character, and yet every single time I come here, we end up right back in the tuxedo." The studio audience fell silent. Even Strahan's expression shifted from amusement to concern. He tried to recover, offering a soft chuckle and saying, fair point, fair point. I get it. Let's talk about the new film then. Tell us what drew you to this project." But the tension didn't dissolve. Craig paused for a moment, visibly trying to compose himself. When he finally spoke, his tone was clipped, deliberate. He described the project as something deeply personal, a film about identity and transformation, ironically echoing the very theme of his frustration. Yet every few sentences, he seemed to circle back to his irritation with how the entertainment industry and the media often trapped actors in the shadows of their most famous roles. "You know what's funny?" Craig said at one point, glancing briefly toward the cameras. "You spend decades honing your craft, learning, growing, trying new things, and still, people just want to talk about the one thing that made you famous. It's like being stuck in a loop. You start to wonder if the work you do now even matters." His words hung heavy in the air. Strahan nodded respectfully but looked visibly uncomfortable, as though he hadn't expected the conversation to turn this introspective or confrontational. Behind the scenes, producers reportedly exchanged anxious glances, signaling Strahan through his earpiece to steer the conversation back toward something light. Strahan attempted to do so, bringing up Craig's recent award nomination for his new role, hoping to cool the atmosphere. But Craig's frustration didn't fade easily. Instead, he launched into a brief critique of Hollywood's obsession with franchises, arguing that genuine creativity often gets buried under commercial expectations. "It's not just about Bond," Craig continued, his voice rising slightly. "It's about the entire system. You give everything to a role, physically, emotionally, and when it's done, people still want you to be that person forever. It's exhausting. I love my fans, but I'm an actor, not a brand. I'm allowed to move on." The audience remained silent, sensing that what they were witnessing wasn't scripted or performative. Strahan tried once more to diffuse the situation with humor. "Hey, I totally get it," he said, smiling gently. "People still call me a football player sometimes, and I haven't tackled anyone in years." The comment earned a few laughs from the crowd, but Craig didn't reciprocate the humor. Instead, he exhaled sharply, muttered something under his breath that wasn't caught by the microphones, and leaned back in his chair, visibly irritated. The exchange grew even more strained when Strahan asked about the emotional process of transitioning from large-scale productions to smaller, more personal films. Craig, by now visibly agitated, interrupted the question halfway through. "You know, Michael," he said, "I came here to talk about storytelling, not nostalgia. Every interview becomes the same thing. People want the gossip, the spectacle, the soundbite. But there's more to art than that. There's more to me than that." For several seconds, there was an uneasy silence. Strahan, ever the professional, tried to maintain composure, but Craig's tone had left the room uneasy. Some audience members later described the moment as awkward but honest, while others felt it bordered on hostility. The cameras kept rolling, and Strahan nodded empathetically, saying, "I respect that, truly. And I think that's what people appreciate about you. You take your craft seriously." Craig softened slightly at that comment, though his tension never fully disappeared. He continued discussing his film but with clipped, restrained responses. When Strahan asked about the collaboration with the film's director, Craig gave a thoughtful answer, his tone calmer but still distant. "It's about trust," he said. "When you work with people who respect your space and your perspective, that's when great work happens. It's not about fame, it's about truth." The interview wrapped up moments later, but the atmosphere remained charged. As the segment ended and the cameras cut to commercial, Craig was seen exchanging brief words with a producer off stage. He appeared to shake his head, then turned and walked away before the show transitioned fully to the next segment. Strahan, left at the desk, smiled professionally and introduced the next guest, but his tone carried a trace of discomfort. Within hours, clips of the interview began circulating online. Social media erupted with speculation, with fans debating whether Craig had overreacted or if Strahan had pushed too hard. Some viewers defended Craig, arguing that he had every right to draw boundaries about the subjects he was tired of discussing. "He's been Bond for years. Let the man talk about something new," one commenter wrote. Others felt his reaction was unnecessarily harsh, noting that Strahan's questions were standard fare for such interviews. By the afternoon, the interview had become a trending topic, with countless tweets dissecting every facial expression and pause. Entertainment blogs picked up the story, labeling it everything from "a tense exchange" to "Daniel Craig's on-air meltdown." Yet those who watched the full segment noticed the nuance, the visible fatigue of an actor who had carried the weight of an iconic role for over a decade, now trying to reclaim his identity beyond it. Later that evening, a short statement was released by Craig's representative, clarifying that he hadn't intended for the conversation to come across as confrontational. "Daniel deeply respects Michael Strahan and Good Morning America. He was simply passionate about discussing his new film and the creative process behind it," the statement read. But by then, the internet had already spun the moment into countless memes and headlines, many exaggerating the nature of the exchange. Behind closed doors, industry insiders reportedly sympathized with Craig's frustration. Many actors have voiced similar concerns about being typecast or reduced to a single role in the public eye. For Craig, who had endured years of speculation, tabloid stories, and relentless fan questions about Bond, the interview seemed to crystallize his struggle between gratitude and exhaustion. In the days that followed, Strahan himself addressed the situation briefly during another broadcast, choosing to downplay the tension. "Daniel's a passionate guy," he said. "I think he just wants people to see the full range of his work, and I totally respect that. He's one of the best in the business." His professionalism was widely praised, with many commending how he handled what could have easily become a full-blown on-air incident. As for Craig, he avoided public appearances for a short while after the interview, allowing the moment to fade from the news cycle. But in retrospect, that morning on Good Morning America served as a rare glimpse into the inner frustrations of an artist caught between fame and freedom. It wasn't just a clash between two personalities, it was a moment that highlighted the invisible tension between entertainment and authenticity, between the persona the world wants to see and the person who simply wants to be understood. For viewers who witnessed it live, the moment felt raw, unscripted, and deeply human. It wasn't the suave, perfectly composed Daniel Craig that audiences were used to. It was a man, weary of the expectations that came with his own success, standing face to face with the endless echo of his cinematic past. And while the headlines sensationalized it as an explosion, those who looked closer saw something quieter but far more real. A rare, unguarded moment where truth slipped through the cracks of celebrity polish, revealing just how heavy the tuxedo of James Bond had truly become.